Hey guys, this is a video on how to build a grind box in Solidworks. We'll be using Solidworks 2012 for this video. I have a soft spot in my heart for BMX and skateboarding as I used to do it when I was a kid. So what we'll be doing with this video today is as you can see, I've already built the grind box. And what we're going to do is roll the tree back, the Solidworks model tree. I used weldments to do this. You can do it as an assembly. I know a lot of people are used to the assembly environment, but for the purposes of keeping a bunch of files together in an assembly versus one file for a part, I did it as a weldment. So you're free to do it as you choose. So we're going to go ahead and roll the model tree back to the first sketch so you guys can see how I started this thing. You could probably call this skeleton modeling or rigging, or I'm not sure what else you'd call it, but basically there's a top level sketch that controls the model. So what this is for the purposes of purchasing material. This is a 4x8 grind box. The grind box is 34 inches tall, and at the end of the video you'll notice that the sides have been held up so they don't drag on the ground. So the sketch here that you're seeing on the screen is undersized, and the reason that it's undersized is the sheeting obviously makes up the rest of the width and depth. And so if you measure it overall, when you put the top sheet on, it's going to be a 4x8 sheet, a solid piece. So you got this top level sketch, and from that I did a weldment that's the bottom of the grind box. You can see that the two short pieces are cut inside, and the reason for that is when I pattern the pieces across the bottom, they're all the same length, as you can see in this step here, and those are on 8-inch centers. We're not going to actually use that many on the bottom because it's a waste of materials, but it's easier to pattern and then go back and remove them, I think. So the next step patterns the top portion of the grind box. And this may be too short for BMX. You might want to make it longer, like a 4x16 or something like that, because of the approach needed and all that. But for a skateboard, it's going to work pretty good. Then what I did is I copied a board out here on the bottom. The reason for that is that will allow me to put coping on top, and that pads out the front so that I can do all my framing in the front and not have the coping stick way off. And so here you can see the actual coping. The coping itself is 2-inch pipe, and so you can see it's got an OD of 2 3/8. And you may want to purchase something different. 2 3/8. 2-inch is going to stick out a little bit, which is good. Anything smaller might actually stick in. So you'll be able to see that as we build forward. And so next, I did a move copy. And the reason for that is that that board's been copied up underneath the coping, so it gives vertical support on the piece of coping, and it leaves a little angle for the coping to sit in. After that, you can see that I've got a vertical that's gone in. Then I mirrored it twice, got my other verticals. It's up to you. You could draw a 3D sketch. I'm not real big on 3D sketches. I mean, they have their place. It's just as easy for me to mirror it around. So, and then I've got a body delete here, which removes half of the 8-inch centers on the bottom. Don't need them. Waste of materials. And so they're now 16-inch centers on the bottom and 8-inch centers on top. And from there, we've got some diagonals that are going to go in. There's a trim that trims the end out right here. So if I roll this back and forth, you can see the trim. And what I did on that, if you haven't used trim extend before, let me go back to that real quick. The way trim extend works is if you check this portion right here, it says allow extension, then it will actually trim down to the body or the face that you've used as what you're trimming against. and so that's a handy little option. And then I've done a copy and then a mirror, and what that's going to give me is the other portion of this, and then I'm going to do a second. The first copy was just to get an extra body, mirrored it around. Second copy is going to move it out away from it. You can still see it, there's some interference here, so I'm going to bet there's another trim. And exactly, it trims out. You're going to end up with two pieces that are different sizes because of the way that these boards are arranged on the end here. So one's higher than the other, so your back board is going to be taller. What you're going to do is you're going to cut them both to this initial size and then trim this. You're going to trim this, this one down because it sits against this lower board. And notice it also doesn't go all the way to the end. The other board goes all the way to the edge. So you might be able to toenail this through the bottom, or I prefer screwing them together. But so then I put the top sheet on finally, got my actual size. This is 1/2 inch plywood. You may want to go with something thicker, or for skateboarding you might even be able to get away with thinner, but it's going to change your calculation, your overhang on the ends and stuff. Then the back goes on, and basically at this point it's just adding plywood pieces. So on this plywood piece you can see it sticks through here. Obviously I'm going to trim that out, and so we do a trim right there, or a cut extrude, mirror that over to the other side, and then the final piece that's going to go on is our front board. And instead of cutting these on an angle and trying to bevel them and all that stuff, I'm just going to square cut them to the shortest point. And then I borrowed a fastener off of McMaster-Carr. It is one of those screws that you pre-drill a pilot hole, and then you just run it in with a air tool or whatever. So there's the pilot hole for it. And the pilot hole is, for the sake of making it easy, it's square to the, if I do a cutaway, in fact we'll do that real quick. So if I cut that back to the hole, you can see it's square to the board. That makes it easy to drill. I'd use a clamp maybe to hold this from the end before you put the, you can slip the clamp inside the tube here if you're going to actually construct this thing, and clamp it on the ends and then do all your drilling. So I put a single countersunk hole through those two pieces, then I patterned it. My pattern is 16-inch centers, and then I actually downloaded the thread forming screw from McMaster-Carr and patterned it out, and you can actually see the screw here. And the screw was done using an insert part feature. Pretty simple feature if you've used it before. If you haven't, let me open it up real quick. Basically it asks you what you want to bring in. So I'm going to bring in solid bodies, axes, planes. Don't necessarily have to have cosmetic threads. I'm going to bring in both sketches in case there's something I need to link to. And then it says locate part with move copy feature. And so you can do moving and copying, but also if you've used the move copy feature, you know that as well as moving and copying and rotating, there's also part of that allows you to do mating, even though you're in a part environment. So that's how I got those in there. And this is the simple box that's a result of all that. And so I will probably have a link in the description about how to download plans for this, bill of materials, cut lists, all that good stuff, drawings. I haven't decided whether or not they're going to be free. I think in the next portion what I'm going to do is add a ramp to either end of this, maybe a landing and a lip of some kind, and I might actually go all the way through construction on those instead of doing an overview like I've done with this video. So hope this was interesting, and talk to you guys later.